Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Britt Steele, and I'm going to be taking you guys on a tour this morning of the greenhouse while we're harvesting. It's a really exciting, beautiful day, and I just wanted to walk through the outdoor area so you could see all the things that are going on. We have some tower gardens and tables set up, and we're excited and ready for you guys to come back and to be doing this harvest and learning with us. So let's head on into the greenhouse and we can see what's going on. All right, we have right there is the evaporative wall that you're looking at. It's one of the things that helps keep the greenhouse nice and cool. We have to have the plants at a certain temperature so that we can grow them year round, whether it's winter or in the summer. What we're looking at right now is a section called Propagation 2. So Propagation 1, and we'll go over this at a different time, that's when we're doing our seeding in the G2. But we first do that, and then we bring propagation out to have them grow a little more and get acclimated to the greenhouse. We're looking at totes right now that we put the produce in order to make sure that once it's harvested, it stays fresh and ready to go. All right, let's move on over to Sergio and Andy, and let's see what these guys are up to. What they have right in front of you is called an NFT channel. So we grow the plants in an NFT channel. It's called a nutrient film technique. The plants are in there using a growth medium. We'll see it here real quick when Sergio is trimming the plant, and we'll be able to get a little bit better idea of what it looks like. So you reach in, and then you take a pair of clippers, you clip it. Then we're going to take all the leaves on the bottom that aren't good. There could be wilted or a little brown. We want to make sure our produce looks good. And then we put it in our produce tote. Let's try it again. See, we clip it, and then we'll come in, we'll take off the brown parts, making sure that we're not touching the trash can, making sure that we're always wearing gloves. We'll go over that in a different lesson, but not today. And then we put it in our produce tote. Here Andy's going to be doing the same thing. We take the leaves off that aren't good. That happens sometimes. It doesn't mean that the produce is bad. It's just as the plant grows over time, it has new and fresh ones, and so the older ones aren't necessarily getting as much sunlight or as much nutrient. So we just need to trim them a little bit before we have to get them in the produce bin. So we're looking at a channel here. Once it's all done, this is where the plants used to live for the last couple weeks. So let's take a look inside. You can see that there's some remainder of all of the plants that are in there. Those plants, you have the roots, and then you have the growing medium. They all kind of grow together in there, and they help keep everything growing healthy. So let's keep on moving here in the greenhouse, and let's see what else we can find.
You turn the water on. Is it?
All right. So Sergio's taking and putting the channel back in to the where we grow in the finishing systems. And the reason why he's doing that is he's trying to make sure that we have the plants back on water. So the way we grow is we grow in zones. With those zones, we have to make sure that when we're harvesting and we take them off of water, that we get them back on as quickly as possible. To the left of Sergio, we have plants that are still there. So as he's putting them in and we're getting ready to turn the zone on, we're making it so that the other plants can have their water back. See, right there, that red lever is how we get the zones back on. And then here we're doing a check,
Just cleaning it.
making sure that there's water in all of it. And now those plants also have water, and they'll be ready to go here in another week or so. This is a view of the nursery that we have. So the nursery is where the plants go after they're in propagation. It gives the plants a little bit more spacing, and it helps them to finish off and be mature so that they go into the finishing channels, which is where we do harvesting. Sergio's using a cloth right now to wipe down the table. We're using a little bit of plant cleaning material to make sure that everything we do, we're wearing our gloves, we're dipping everything so that it's sanitized. We want to make sure that all of our produce is going to be safe. So when you guys are going to be here doing harvesting, you'll be doing the same procedures that you're seeing here today in terms of wearing gloves, making sure your tables and your work areas are wiped off, making sure that we keep everything clean and sanitary.
Andy has my gloves.
Where'd he go though?
All right.
Storage?
Looks like we're going to head out here and we're going to go do a quick check over into the refrigerated unit. So what happens is we store our produce totes, those are the white containers, in our cold storage. And the reason why we do that is we sanitize the cold storage and we make sure that it's ready for all of our fresh produce, which is right there on the right side. Then we keep our empty bins, which are also sanitized, in the cold storage, and it keeps them cool so that when we put our produce in there, they're able to stay nice and cool for our refrigeration trip. It's very important whenever you're harvesting something that you keep it refrigerated until you get the time so that it can be packed and sent out for either a grocery store or something like that. That keeps the plant fresh, healthy, and safe. So here we got the produce totes heading back out. They're going to be going to the greenhouse so that we can continue packing more plants.
Can you wave to the camera and say hi for a second?
Oh, Andy's saying bye to us. All right. We got to make sure that door stays closed so it can stay nice and cool. Okay. And as you notice, he's going in the first door there. We'll get to this a little bit later, not probably in today's lesson, but down the road. That door right there is going to be a green door, which means things that are sanitized and clean can go into the greenhouse from there. Later down the road, you'll see on the other door at the other end of the greenhouse is where things that need to be cleaned, mainly channels, are able to head out so that they keep things from having cross-contamination. This is really important when we're looking at food safety and that we're making sure everything that's harvested is clean and the way it needs to be. All right, let's head on down the field a little bit and take a look at how we set this up. So first we take off the emitters. That's what puts the nutrient water into the channels. We take them off so that then we can put them on a table. All right, we got a few more here. And guys, if you have questions, make sure you're putting your questions in the question comments and we can get to it. Okay, here we should have a new fresh section that's ready to go. You can see that there's the roots and the algae in there. We'll see if we can go back to it. We can talk a little bit more about it. But now we have the channels coming out. They go to the table that Sergio cleaned. And then we're able to look at taking the produce which you saw earlier, clipping it, cleaning it, and putting it in the produce bin. Usually we'll put maybe 3 or 4 channels on a table at one time and to start working. Well, it looks like Chris has a full produce bin, so he's bringing it down to Andy. Andy is going and putting it on the Rubbermaid cart. Those cart we make sure is clean and sanitized. You see how all of us are wearing gloves. We dip our gloves in buckets to make sure that are with cleaning solution, as you're seeing Sergio do right now. So we'll be practicing this when we're in the greenhouse, making sure that everything is the way we need to do it. All right, you lift up, you clip, you clean it,
These are the green butter lettuce.
and then we put it in
Be a little different.
a produce tote. Now, one of the questions might be, how many do we put in each one of the produce bins? Normally for lettuce, you put about 24. Right now, we pretty much pack in between 22 and 30. What we do is we count up everything ahead of time, so we know how many are being delivered, and then it's a total quantity that's delivered, and so it doesn't necessarily matter specifically how much is in each produce bin. But if we have a contract for a restaurant, for example, that wants exactly 24 heads of lettuce, we'll have to make sure that that's how many are counted into the produce bin before we send it out for delivery. It's really important that when we're packing produce in, we try to make sure that it's not squeezing or squishing anything. You put it in a little loose. You can pack it tight, but you want to make sure that it's next to each other and that it's nice and loose. Otherwise, the leaves will get crushed and it'll end up making the produce look bad. We usually do about 2 layers. So you try and put in your first 12 side by side to each other, kind of tuck them in. And then after that, you're going to come in and put another layer. If we tried to make it too full, then once we put the lid on, it would squish everything down. And by the time the customer will get the produce, it'll all be squashed. So we don't want to do that. We want to try and make sure that there's only about 24 in there and that it sits nice and comfortably. All right, let's move on over to Chris. He's on a different section, harvesting. You notice he's doing the same thing of cleaning off the plants. That's a very important component that we have. We want to make sure that it looks good. Also, those plants might be sitting in the produce tote for a couple days, might be a week or two, and we want to make sure that nothing gets moldy or mildew or slimy. So that's another reason why we clean it. If you notice, we have multiple workstations that are set up here in the greenhouse for harvesting. This makes it so that we're able to do different groups and we're able to harvest the field faster. So when you guys come back, you'll be coming in and be working in teams, pairs, or in different sections so that we can all get the harvest out. See how we tuck in the plant right there? We kind of tuck it in, make sure it's nice and tight, but we're trying not to squish the leaves. When we pick up the plants from the harvest, we pick it up nice and gently. You don't try and squeeze the lettuce head too much because you don't want to break the leaves. So you try and grab it kind of from the center at the top a little bit, or if you can grab underneath. Either way works, just as long as it's nice and you're a little soft with your hands when you're putting it in. So every channel has 18 plants that are grown in there, and the number of channels that we're harvesting right here today is 60 channels. So the number of plants would be 60 times 18, and that'll tell you how many plants we're harvesting in one time. The whole greenhouse, the amount of plants that you can harvest is around 8,000. And that's kind of split between the propagation area, the nursery area, and then the finishing systems that are here. So the number of finishing channels are 140 channels with 18 plants per channel. We're trying to figure out if there's different areas that we can harvest faster. If you notice, I was harvesting on the end through the field, and Chris was harvesting there in the aisle. And we're trying to see if either way works a little bit faster. If you notice, we get some algae growth along with the roots and the growth medium. And one of the things that we'll do, you'll probably see later here, is we take the channels out, and part of cleaning them is to get all that algae out. We want to make sure that there's not a ton of algae growing in there. We call it biology, because it can help make the plants be off a little bit with their nutrient levels. If you notice, each harvest takes probably 2 to 2.5 hours. So it's going to be important to do a lot of teamwork and make sure that we're ready to go.
Why is that there
for
versus here?
putting it all together.
Oh, we got them here, so I gotta move them.
Just curious.
I didn't even notice.
So what we do is, after the produce bins are stacked, we'll put them all on the cart, and then we'll take the cart and we'll drive it down to, see, there's a bin that's completely full, and then we'll take that cart and we'll take it down into the refrigeration unit once we get some more in. Alright, let's do a little quick time lapse so you can see these guys from a different angle as they're harvesting. Alright, what do you think? These guys are doing pretty good. They're cleaning it, harvesting it. They're doing a great job putting it in there. And you see how they're doing their best to make sure that everything is clean, stays clean. They're not touching their face or touching lots of other things with their hands. And then once they're done, they're putting it back right now in the field so that we can keep the nutrients on for the other areas that still have plants. Once those plants, that section is done, then we go and we're able to go and put it into a cart hopper and take it outside so that it can get power washed. On this side, right in front of us, this is a group of plants that'll be ready for next week. So when you're growing in the greenhouse, you always try and practice making sure that there's plants that are ready for harvest, plants that are coming up for harvest, and also plants that are in the nursery. So this is a very important thing to make sure everything's going all at once. If we had done every bit of this so that today we were harvesting all of it, it would take us a really long time, and then we'd have to wait a couple weeks before we could harvest again. This way, we're able to harvest every single week, and one week is one side and another week is the other side. Alright, we're taking a look back again at our propagation 2. These plants are growing really good. One of the reasons why they're growing so good right now is we decided to put some blue heat mats underneath. And those heat mats, we raised the temperature of the water a little bit, and it's made it so that these plants are growing really fast. There we go. That's one of the emitters that goes into the channel here. And we set the Oasis grow media on top of the channels. It goes into the drain there, and then it'll go underneath to a reservoir, and it'll get recycled back up, and then the plants, the roots, are able to soak up the nutrients and able to grow. Those plants are growing so fast that there's not a lot of nutrients down there for the plants. This section, it's showing all of our nutrients and the nutrient barrels that we're going to be using and the electronic systems. I know we've talked just a little bit about it, but it's worth talking some more. So these are the systems that we use for measuring our EC, which is electrical conductivity, and our pH, which is what you have for acids and bases. Those are important because it helps to tell us information on the nutrients that's in the reservoir. Do we have too many vitamins? Do we not have enough vitamins? Do we need different minerals? So that computer system then will tell those barrels if we need to put a little bit more in. Right there, that's called a peristaltic pump. And those pumps will pump out nutrient from A and B into the reservoirs for the plants to be able to grow. All right, it looks like we have a set of produce that's about ready. About 24 plants are in each one. All right, we're back to the nursery. The little guys are going to spend about 2 weeks there, and when they get big enough, they're going to get moved over into these channels, the ones that we're harvesting from. With the idea is they go from that size to this size in just 2 weeks. And that's a lot of growing, but if we give it the right amount of space and the right amount of vitamins and nutrients, and along with some good sunlight and good temperature controls, they'll end up making it to that size. So here, once we're done with the channels, we put them right here in the red cart, and then from that cart, they'll end up getting taken outside and cleaned and sanitized, so then when we put the new plants in, they'll be ready to go. So again, after everything, you have to keep on making sure that your hands are dipped and you sanitize them, along with making sure your gloves are on. And now I can go back and look at harvesting some more.